Now it's time for learning time with me, Dr. Bones. You guys have chosen to hear about the great Molasses flood of Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh.
The year was 1919. By the way, Eddie didn't know what molasses was, so I have the definition. It's a thick, dark, syrupy liquid. To me, I think of molasses as just syrup, like thicker syrup. But it's used in a whole lot of stuff.
Okay.
Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I think that maple syrup comes from a tree and then molasses comes from like sugar cane or something.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, good for you. How'd you know that?
Well, I had to look it up.
Oh, well, there you go. So did I. That's right. Thank you for being honest.
You're welcome.
So the Great Molasses Flood, a giant 50-foot tall molasses storage tank, held over 2.3 million gallons of molasses, burst
No.
at 12:40 p.m. right after lunchtime. Witnesses described hearing a loud roar or explosion before the tank gave way. A 25-foot high wave of molasses.
Dude, that is so
6
tall.
times 4. That's 4 Ms.
Whoa.
That is a sticky situation.
Okay.
Moving at an estimated 35 miles an hour. Rushed through the streets, smashing buildings, knocking over freight cars, trapping people and animals inside its thickness. From this 25-foot high wave of molasses, 21 people died.
Well, yeah, we're laughing, but
Wow.
this is real sticky stuff going
I
through the
didn't know
city.
anybody died.
Well, I hadn't got to that part yet.
Oh my gosh,
just
this
kind
is
of assumed.
tragic.
150 people were injured. Several buildings were demolished. Rescue efforts were slow and difficult because the molasses was so thick that people and horses became trapped, and some of the animals suffocated because, again, the molasses was so thick. So they've tried to figure out what exactly caused it. They think the tank had been built so poorly and it had leaked a bit of molasses from the start, but the company ignored the warnings. Some reports even said the workers were told to paint the tank brown to hide the leaks so you couldn't see the leaks because it was the same color.
Shady.
On the day of the disaster, a sudden rise in temperature may have caused the molasses to expand, as in a warmer day, putting too much pressure on the already weak structure. It took weeks to clean up the molasses, which stuck to everything. The United States Industrial Alcohol Company was found responsible in a lawsuit. The Great Molasses Flood remains one of the strangest disasters in U.S. history. A mix of tragedy and dark humor that fascinates people a year later. It looks like a flood. I'm looking at pictures of it. It looks like a flood, and buildings are absolutely crushed. And it's still, and forever it smelled like molasses, like for
Syrup.
50 years.
Well, that's not a bad smell, you know,
It
for
could have been,
the
that
town.
part could be worse, yeah.
The Great Molasses Flood of 1919. Boston, Massachusetts. Shout out.
The
Wow.
terror of people running away from the molasses as it's like going through the city. That's crazy.
Getting stuck in it. Think
Stuck
about
in
that.
it,
You're
yeah.
going to save people on a horse, and the horse can't move.
No, I get a little honey stuck on my hands, and I'm like, you know, it's like, I can't even get, or like the lid on my honey jar, I can't even get
terrible.
it off because it's so sticky.
I dropped some syrup last night in the kitchen floor, and I was like, what do I do? It's so hard to pick up. Can you
Right.
imagine a whole city?
Yeah,
I can't.
that's cool.
Oh, man.
I figured out I had jars out there, though, if I know me, trying to get some of that. Off the top, though, some that hadn't been, on the ground.
I think it's all contaminated at that point.
Nah. 5-second rule.
It looks like an earthquake hit the city. So, had you guys ever heard of the Great
Never.
Molasses Flood in
Never.
1919? Do you feel a little smarter?
Yes.
All right, that is learning time with Dr. Bones. Thank you very much. Class dismissed. I like that.
It's a Bobby Bones show.